Hello and welcome to Practical Knife Reviews. Today for you we've got a modern folding knife, which I know for us is pretty unusual. We tend to favor the traditionals. This is a Schrade made in China SCH504. This is a discontinued model. It was discontinued last year, so I got a heck of a deal on it. The MSRP on it, not that anybody ever sells things for the MSRP, but the MSRP was like $25 for it. And I got it for, I think, $8, including shipping. So, needless to say, it was worth a shot to at least review. Yeah, 9CR18 MOV blade, which is a halfway decent Chinese steel. It's actually fairly decent, if the heat treat is right. And I've been using this one quite a bit since I got it over a year ago. And yeah, I found the heat treat, it's actually pretty decent. It holds an edge pretty well. The first thing that you notice about this is it's really heavy for a folding knife because it is a lot of steel. But yeah, discontinued, so you're probably gonna either have to look on the secondary market or see if some of the knife retail companies still have it as a discontinued item on their websites. If they do, it should be on a pretty high sale. This is just some bank line that I use as a little lanyard to help me pull it out of the pocket. You can see we've got a tip up pocket clip. Not reversible. It is removable, but it's not reversible. We've got a flipper tab, but we've just got little Teflon washers in here. The flipper tab doesn't actually flip it open on its own. Like you can't flip the blade open regardless of what position you have it in by using the flipper tab alone. You have to use a little bit of wrist to get it open. So yeah, don't expect a great action. It was a little bit gritty and it was really off center when I got it. The blade was actually basically touching this liner. We'll look at more fit and finish when we go inside, but you can see there's some scrape marks right there. That was from where it was rubbing against the liner. It was easy enough to fix. You just take the whole thing apart, clean every single place where a rivet or a screw is going through with some alcohol, grease them up with my homemade wood sealant, which is just beeswax and mineral oil, and then put it back together. And now the centering is not quite perfect, but it's pretty close. And the action's a lot less gritty than it was when I got it. So a little bit of love and care made it a lot more usable. But we'll talk about fit and finish more when we get inside. Let's get right to the cutting. So first, is this knife sharp? Well, it should be because I've sharpened it several times since I've gotten it. And yeah, it's sharp. This looks like construction paper. It's not. It's really just thin, normal stock paper. You can see the marker bled right through right away, but it's a sharp knife. Let's see how it does on cardboard. As I said, it's sharp. Let's try a couple different angles. Yeah, it's sharp. It goes right through the cardboard. That one is a little bit tougher, but I think that was just the angle I went in at. It gets thick behind the edge pretty quick, but I've got the edge itself pretty much screaming sharp right now. But you can see, is that hollow? It might have the ever so slightest amount of hollow grind in there, otherwise that's just a flat, but I think it's slightly hollow. Hard to tell. And then a secondary bevel, of course. As I said, 9CR18 MOV steel. Let's look at how it does with wood. So here we've got, this is just pine. It's a really, really soft wood. And I will mention that I probably shouldn't mention that, but I have actually batoned light pieces of wood with this before, with gloves on, of course, just to see what would happen. And yeah, it went okay. I definitely would not recommend batoning with a folding knife. You can see those feathers are actually halfway decent. Not putting a lot of effort into it. Like I said, it's a little bit thick behind the edge, so I am having to like focus on getting it to dig in. Otherwise it just kind of wants to skate across the surface rather than bite into the wood. But once you get under the surface there, the edge is nice and sharp. And so if we take our time, we can get really fine curls like that. But I'm more of a quick and dirty kind of guy. You see the nice curls under there? Those will catch a spark real quick. Toss those in the fire pit. Yeah, remind me to do the apple, otherwise I'm going to forget. Like I did last time. Here we've got red oak, hardwood, the hardest wood we've got in our forest. Again, being slightly thick behind the edge makes it want to kind of skate across the surface, so I'm having to like really angle it hard myself because it's not really wanting to bite in on its own. But once you do get it under the surface, it does cut through the wood pretty well. You just really have to get it to get the right angle. Not the greatest feathers, but certainly okay. And for a really hard wood with a folding knife, these are not bad. There's our oak feathers. So yeah, you can get this this steel really screaming sharp, and yeah, the heat treat on it is actually pretty decent. I've used it on a lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't have, and it's held the edge okay. Now let's check. This being a really thick handle isn't quite as comfortable to use in the reverse grip. Just as a heads up. Wow, look how thin I got underneath the skin right there.
Wow. That'll never happen again.
There it is more. Look at how thin that is. I'm like coming up with paper pieces of skin. Now I'm gonna just go quick and dirty. Mom, why don't you comment on it while I'm peeling?
I didn't think I'd like it because it's really modernistic looking, but I have a hard time with both opening and closing knives. This was easy to open, and I didn't realize there was the little thumb peg thing to try to open it with that. You can pull it open easy. It locks nice and crisp.
Yeah, I guess I should show that. There's a thumb stud here for thumb stud opening, and there's also the flipper for flipping open.
Yeah.
But
I didn't
there's
use
also
either.
it's
really easy to pull it open, and so
yeah,
that I liked.
It wasn't as easy when it came in. I'm just going to reiterate that point. The wood sealant that I have in there has greased up that pivot a decent amount.
I like the shape of the blade, and I was able to easily make the lock mechanism work, which I'm normally not able to do that either.
It's a liner lock, a little bit of jimping on the liner, which, I don't know. It's also not super sharp on it, so it's not an uncomfortable liner lock like some of them are rather sharp. Also jimping on the spine here in the back of the blade. It's okay jimping, actually. It's not uncomfortable. Doesn't dig into the hand at all.
So I like the shape of the blade. I like that it's easy to open and close. It locks very firmly in place, so I like it.
How about the size and weight?
I didn't carry it for very long, but didn't seem too heavy or anything for me to carry.
For me, it's a little bit bulky and heavy. I know some people like really heavy pocket knives, but I usually carry a fixed blade on me, so my pocket knife generally I want to be a little bit smaller, but yeah, we'll get the measurements of the weight and stuff when we're inside. But you could see it peeled the apple pretty smooth. I'm not the best apple peeler in the world. There's my obligatory statement that, yeah, I pretty much only peel apples for this channel. But yeah, it peeled the apple just fine. It actually went through the wood pretty well. It's a pretty stout blade. It's just a liner lock, and you can see the lock up here. We'll look at the fit and finish more when we get inside. The lockup's right at about 50-60%, which is, yeah, nice and solid, and it doesn't have too hard of a push to get over. Yeah, so I guess that's the cutting section for the Schrade, the discontinued Schrade. I think they called it Schrade Stonewash Liner Lock SCH504. It's not an original name or anything like that, but yeah, next we're going to go inside and take a little bit more of a look at the fit and finish and some specs. We're back on Practical Knife Reviews, and we're looking at the SCH504 Schrade Stonewash Liner Lock knife. discontinued model. So I like to call this one the non-flipper flipper because you can see there's a flipper tab here. And a lot of modern style knives that have flipper tabs, the action is really good where you push it down and the thing flies open all the way to open. This one is, well, not quite like that. You can't deploy it all the way just by utilizing the flipper tab. Even if you get a running start or hit it really hard, it's just not going to open all the way only by using the flipper tab. So to get it, you have to use a little bit of wrist. It also has a thumb stud. Right now it's pretty smooth. When I got it, it was a little bit gritty and the centering was all the way off to one side. You should be able to see the rub mark against the liner right there. Maybe. This has a blackened stonewash finish on the blade. You can see the centering is pretty close to centered now, but to get it there, I had to take the whole thing apart, clean out every single joint on each part of it with alcohol, put my homemade wood sealant on the joint, and then stick it back together. This is a T8, if I remember correctly, that's a T8 Torx screw, and those are T6s. T6s, this one's somewhat stripped, even from just taking it apart and putting it back together. That one's somewhat stripped. That one is a little bit stripped. That one, of course, is fine. So yeah, these you can only take them apart a couple times if you do torque them down really significantly whatsoever, because you are going to strip these T6s. But I took it apart once, cleaned it out, got it together, and now it's in fairly smooth order. But yeah, it's not going to just flip on its own. So like I said, this is 9CR18 MOV steel. So a lot of you might be familiar with 8CR13 MOV steel. This is maybe a slight step up over that, just slightly. Roughly 9CR18 MOV is going to be the Chinese equivalent of about 440B. The performance will be somewhere between 440B and 440C. There's a little bit more molybdenum in 9CR18 MOV compared to 440B, which helps. There's a little bit of nickel, and there's a little bit of cobalt added. That all of those should help increase the wear resistance slightly compared to 440B, but it doesn't have as much carbon, and it has more chromium than 440C. So assuming that the heat treat is equal to steels, the other two steels, the performance of this steel, the inherent performance of this steel should be somewhere between 440B and 440C, which is to say it's a pretty decent steel. And the MSRP on this, I checked it, I think again was $24.99, but this is a discontinued model. So SCH504 discontinued. I just checked, you can still find it in stock at several of the knife retailers, and it's between, I think I got it for around $8, but you can find it for between $8 and $10 or $11, depending on where you look. But yeah, you can get a really nice edge on this. It holds the edge fairly well. But let's get some measurements now while my mom commentates on it, because one thing about it is pretty heavy for a pocket knife.
Normally I would have not thought I should like this knife because it's a bit clunky, and I don't like modern, futuristic, metallic, clunky looking knives, but it's really easy open, and I have a hard time opening and closing these kind of knives. This one is easy to open and easy to close, and I do like the shape of the blade itself.
So what we're looking at here is 8 inches overall open. We're looking at a 3.5 inch long blade with a 3.25 inch long. I'd say yeah, 3.25 inch long cutting area. So to here, a little sharpening choil. And closed, we are looking at right around 4.5 inches long. Let's get a weight measurement. Now this is where, like I said, for me, this one falls down a little bit, because if I'm wearing pants with a belt like I usually do, it's no problem. But if I want to put this in a pair of shorts, for example, it does have a tendency to want to, well, basically pants me. Not that you wanted to know that, but yeah, you can see it's 151 grams, which is 5.3 ounces. So 5.3 ounces for a 3.5 inch long blade is a little bit much. It's because this is all steel handle here. So 5.3 ounces. What a lot of people say is the rule of thumb for single bladed pocket knives is you want it to be around 1 ounce per inch of blade. So if that was the case, for it to be a weight-friendly knife for its size, you'd be looking at about 3.5 ounces, give or take. Of course, you know, it doesn't have to fall in that. It's not like a hard and fast rule, but if you wanted to follow that general rule, you'd be looking for something around 3.5 ounces, and we're at 5.3. So it is significantly heavier than other knives that have similar sized blades in terms of length. But you do have a very stout blade width-wise. You can see it's a very burly blade. It's not the thickest, but you know, it's decently thick here. It's got a nice stonewash. The handle is colored to look similar to the stonewash, but isn't actually stonewashed. It's just coloration here. You can see there is like slight flaws in the casting of the metal. Nothing too serious. The pocket clip works well. It holds, but it's not a killer, and it's not too obtrusive in your hand. Jimping is relatively comfortable. The flipper makes a nice little finger guard, you could say. Yeah, I mean, overall for $8, it's a nice knife. Again, let's get this light out of the way. These modern style knives aren't really my thing, but there's definitely a place for this one. Once I did some care to it, it ended up cleaning up pretty nice, fully functional and all that. Relatively smooth open and close. I guess I'll show you the lockup on it. So you can see, again, keeping in mind that I did lightly baton this just to see what would happen. And I think that the lockup's a little bit more solid now than it was then, which I guess is a good thing. But you can see here the lockup is 50 or 60% under there. So a nice solid lockup in any case. It's just a liner. Not going to be the most solid of things. You really shouldn't baton with it, but you know, I like to do stupid things sometimes. So
Yes, you do.
yes, I do. But yeah, overall for $8, can't complain about it. Once I got the centering back and the action a little bit smoother, yeah, it's fine, even if it is a little bit clunky and heavy. Any other final comments on it?
Oh, that would be good on your cougar hunt.
Yeah. Yeah, I might want a fixed blade for that, but this would be okay for it. So if that's all that we're going to say, that's it for the Schrade SCH504 stonewashed liner lock pocket knife discontinued model. Yeah, check it out if you're interested in a really budget-friendly knife with a decent steel. And let us know what you think if you also have this one. Let us know what you think about the weight for the size. That's really the main drawback for it for me. But thanks for tuning in. That's it for this week on, well, not this week, this episode on Practical Knife Reviews, and we'll see you very soon. Take care.